Today, we're discussing predictions for the newest game in the Monster Hunter series, Monster Hunter Wilds. After I successfully predicted that we were not going to get a new Monster Hunter game this year,
we will not get a release, a full launch of a Monster Hunter game in March of 2024. But I do believe they will get a trailer and an announcement for the next generation of Monster Hunter.
I've decided to make predictions once again for the new game. This coming just after the Hunter's Choice Award for Top Monster came out, which I think gives some indication into what might be coming in 2025 when Monster Hunter Wilds releases. So let's dive in. Since the Game Awards in December, where the very last trailer shown was for Monster Hunter's newest game coming in 2025, which I don't think a lot of us realised until it came up with Capcom Presents. I know I flipped my shit, and so did our good friend Brendan as well, who has also been on the podcast episode as well. We both absolutely flipped out when it was announced. We knew something was coming, and that was it. And honestly, I think for a lot of people's reactions, it was truly incredible to see something that was coming out. And unfortunately, we've heard very little. There's been no updates, even at the 20th anniversary programme, which I think everyone felt was a little bit lacklustre. It lacked just, I think, content in general, apart from the top monsters, the Hunter's Choice Awards, where every single monster was voted for, and the top 3 would be made into a beautiful illustration. But we'll get into that very shortly. Since as well, we won't be seeing any updates until summer, except from the community voting for the best monster music choice, which is coming out very soon. We saw that the best monsters resulted in Zinogre being at first, Nergigante at second, and my favourite monster of all time, Lagiacrus, at third. I've decided to give my predictions for Wilds. First up, I think we're looking at another open world game. I think this is a natural progression for the game, going from having set areas where there's loading screens going through each area to world where we now have seamless motion between different areas that you're going into, but still somewhat contained maps. They are much, much larger in terms of scale, so it's semi-open world that way. I think with Wilds, with the title being Wilds, as well with the kind of journey that our protagonist in the trailer is going on, it does feel very open world, considering as well right at the end the kind of scale of the environment that we are looking at. But I do think with the massive success of World and its immersive experience in giving the player a living, breathing world to go through, I believe with having this game on next-gen consoles, like the Xbox One and the PlayStation 5, this allows the opportunity to go even further in the development of the series. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure we're all pining for a fully open world. The question is, will it be fully open world, or just a further expansion of world with much larger maps? I certainly think it'll be, given the evidence of it being next gen, how the technology is progressing and developing, as well as Capcom as a company making year-on-year profits to be able to fund and fire the budget into a much larger project and world. Here's the big one. Underwater combat. Now, it's been talked about, theorised, and dismissed by much of the community. I think it'll make a return. I genuinely think in some way, shape or form, it will make a return. Mostly due to the fact that my boy Lagiacrus, sitting up there with his wee Santa hat on, is a top monster. Number 3. That is a very telling sign that the community has rallied behind this idea. And I think Capcom, obviously, they'll be looking at the votes. They'll know which monsters are going to be on top. And I feel that underwater combat is going to make a very successful return to Monster Hunter Wilds in 2025. They've got the technology to do it. They've more than likely got the budget to do it as well. They've got the Leviathan skeleton as well, which was teased in World as well, and I was very upset that they teased me and then they just took that away from me like I was given a lollipop as a child, and then they just went, no, we'll take that. That's not coming back anytime soon. And I've been upset ever since. The flagship monster of the third generation of Monster Hunter and the only iteration to really have underwater combat. It's been voted as the third top monster in the entirety of the franchise. How can Capcom ignore this? That's the question. Another interesting note is for the 15th anniversary as well, the promotional material for that. Fatalis's model looked quite refined and rather hyper real in terms of the renditions that we've seen in World. It does look very similar to the Fatalis that has been released in Monster Hunter Iceborne. Now, this may be a long shot, but I believe in some capacity we will have a comeback. It's been 15 years since this gimmick was introduced. It's been 15 years since, production wise, it took up half the budget and half the time to develop this, and it was still quite janky and not phenomenal to fight underwater wise, especially if you're fighting against a Plesioth, because good lord, that thing has just been the bane of my third generation Monster Hunter experience. And I hate it. I hate it so much. Why is it a key quest? What? Why? Do you just want people to experience it so we can collectively hate on it? That's more than likely what it is. But we did have it in the alpha gameplay footage, where the Ancient Forest was in fact World's version of the Flooded Forest from Monster Hunter Tri, which showed the player being chased by an Anjanath through the colossal tree that sits at the centre of the Ancient Forest, to then be interrupted by Lagiacrus attacking the T-Rex and just taking it to lunch, literally. Another thing to note is more on the logo design of Monster Hunter Wilds. One of the symbols representing a monster's head certainly looks Lagiacrus-like. But to be perfectly honest, that's a bit more of a long shot. A few things as well from the trailer that were quite prominent. The likes of the new mount, which was quite obvious and quite clear to see, which looks to allow easier traversal through larger areas, similar to Monster Hunter Rise's Palamute system that they had, where you had, your mount and you can, speed through a lot of areas, as well as the gliding as well, that they, almost like the Peritix type creature that is your mount will be, which its design itself does look quite interesting. I have been looking through the Monster Hunter World compendium that does have some of the concept art in there. Perhaps, now this is also maybe a long shot, maybe we're looking at an ancestor or a descendant. Maybe we're further back in time, or we're further forward in time by however many years. I'm not entirely sure. But another thing that points towards even larger maps is mobile base camps. Now, if we're going in the direction of an open world setting, and also with the title of the game being Wild, so it's almost like the new frontier that we're moving into, it looks likely we'll be able to set up a makeshift camp. A makeshift camp. I cannot speak today, guys. We'll be able to make a makeshift camp that looks likely, because it adds a bit more to the game as we play through it. It adds more of a stop temporarily than something that is rather more permanent in terms of these camps, which is further evidence towards us looking at an open world game. Now, switching weapons on the go, I'm sure everybody noticed the satchel on the side of the mount that we can see in the trailer. There is a bowgun stock poking out, which looks like it is attached to the rest of a bowgun, and it looks like an indication of the ability to switch weapons and potentially switch equipment on the go as you explore the wilds, which does also add into the mobile base camp theory as well. It feels like, to make things a bit more seamless and a bit more efficient, instead of continuously going back to a singular camp and changing your equipment, your weapons, you have that secondary equipment kind of stocked and ready to go. Hidden and not so hidden details. The Slinger and Spirit Bug cage that can clearly be seen in the trailer also indicates that we are in the new world. We are a part of the 6th fleet and the 6th generation of hunters and research sent out to explore the wilds of the new world. Because in World, we've just begun. We've just begun in the new world, where everything is new and fresh. And now we're looking to explore further. I would definitely like to see Astera or Celiana again, and we explore, maybe not from these locations, but we maybe start there and then we head out, as a kind of nod to the previous 6 years of the Monster Hunter franchise, which have been incredibly successful. A part of me, now this is just an idea, a part of me would love to see a more seamless way to join hunters. As you're riding across the map in Wilds, talking about the evidence of mobile base camps, talking about underwater combat as further evidence, and an open world map as even further evidence of you being in the wilds and you are an explorer and researcher in this great landscape. I would love to see, as you're riding across the map, you see a flare firing into the sky, you maybe hear a monster roar, and as you get closer, you actually see another player fighting a monster, and you have the option to join them, much like the option with joining a player via the SOS flare in Worlds. But this might be a bit ambitious of an idea, but an idea nonetheless. We know very little information about the entirety of this game. We've seen, frankly, no real gameplay as it stands, but let me know what you all think in the comments. And remember, drop a like and subscribe. It's free. We're looking to grow this channel, make some more somewhat accurate predictions and some not so accurate predictions for Monster Hunter Wilds. These are just a few predictions that I do have. A lot of them do follow on from the top monsters and the other videos that we've seen. I think seeing Zinogre appear with these kind of like storms that are, or at least appear in the trailer, having it be struck by lightning and then come into its ascended form, that would be very, very cool to see, and something we probably will see. And Nergigante as well, I think that will definitely be in the game. Lagiacrus, I think, is a bit more up for contention because with the base model of Lagiacrus as well, it's primarily an underwater fighter, really, and an underwater monster. So will be interesting to see what updates we do get from here. And we'll need to just wait and see what happens. But we know big things are coming from Monster Hunter. So until next time, we'll catch you later. Have a good one. Bye.